In this video, I'm going to talk you through our limited edition kit, the Sable. We're going to talk about both the sewing and the painting of the frame. So here's the kit. Now, one of the beauties of this limited edition is it's really simple, but it's almost deceptively simple, so you might feel like you're missing a trick with it. In the kit, there's 4 key colours you're going to use. And on the back of your little booklet, there's a picture of it, just in case you want to refer to anything. But basically, the entire stitch we're using throughout is going to be a back stitch. So I'm going to show you how you do this. And the key thing here is I want you to kind of forget any technique. This is just about creating a really lovely stitched piece using as little technique as possible. That's part of the challenge, because most of you doing the limited editions are going to be good stitchers. So I'm cutting an arm's length of thread, and we're going to stitch this one with 6 strands of thread. So we're using all 6, but even though we're using all 6, I really recommend still separating them. The main reason for this is if you separate all the strands, it will make it look a lot fuller and also makes the thread smoother. So even though you're using all 6, separate them out, get them smooth and thread your needle up. Then tie a knot. And I'm going to show you how to start your stitching. Now, I've just picked the white here. There is no correct place to start on this design. This design is meant to be really easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to start doing this outline. And you can see this is done in back stitch. And actually on the outline, I'm using a couple of lines of white side by side as I'm doing it. Now, all I want you to do is use the really simple technique of backstitch. And I think if you want to challenge yourself, the way to make this design look really special is to use as short a stitch as possible, because that almost makes it end up looking like it's some kind of mosaic. So you can see here, I'm working up the leg and I'm just doing little short back stitches. I'm going to go the whole way up the leg. And then when I get to the end, I'm going to turn around and come back down again the other way. Now, again, if you're being quite precise and you want to be particular about this, I think it's really nice to come back down almost halfway along where the previous back stitches are, so they are slightly out of line with each other. I would go around the whole way doing this white, but don't feel like you need to do all the white before you do the next sections. It's not like that with this kit. This kit is designed to be really easy. Now just finish off, secure your threads as you normally would, securing it underneath the stitches on the back as I'm doing here, and cut it away. I'm going to thread up exactly the same way, 6 strands, thread up again my needle, this time with the dark grey thread, and I'm going to show you how we start filling up in the middle. And one of the key things I really want you to do with this kit is not to try make it too neat, and not to be too methodical. So you could obviously fill in this entire section up the leg in a really classic satin stitch, but I think it's quite nice to mix in a few different stitch angles. So I'm putting a couple in horizontal and then I'm going to put a couple in vertical because I want it to feel like it's pieced together. So just don't worry about your stitch direction and try as best you can to control the perfectionist within you. Try keep it loose, keep it free. Don't worry about some gaps. That's quite nice, all parts of it. So you see I'm going up, filling in this gap in the leg. And then as I get closer to the top, I'm going to start carrying on my little short back stitches, just like I did with the white. And I'm going to end up filling the entire area in these short little stitches. I would apply exactly the same principle all over the design. Now I finish off my thread again under the back, and because I'm using a back stitch, I'm creating loads of volume on the back as well, which is great because it makes the whole piece really stand out and come really 3D once you've mounted it. So the only other bit of stitching I just want to show you is for all the reeds and the rushes in the background of the Sable. So for these ones, I think the best way to do it is first stitch the lines that have been screen printed on the fabric first in the pink, and do a back stitch the whole way up. And that way you just get your central line done. I have not marked the leaves on the fabric because I think it's better if you make your own judgment about how big these should be and where they go, rather than worrying about following the lines. So I'm going to always do one longer diagonal like that, and then a short little tiny diagonal into it. And I'll just show you that again. So I've got one long diagonal, and then I'm going to do a short little diagonal. And that is all you do. This is as simple as the sewing is. I've designed this kit to be simple because I actually think as embroiderers, if you're anything like me, it's sometimes quite nice to not have technique. So you fill in the entire bit. The only bit that's slightly different is having a satin stitch going round the horns, which I think are really lovely. You can do a lovely smooth satin stitch there. That's it. That's the simplicity of the stitching. So for all of you who bought painting kits, I want to show you the paints. Now these may look a bit confusing when they first arrive. You've got a very obvious white, you'll have a varnish, and you've got 3 purples. Get these in good light and you'll see they go from light to dark. You've got a lighter, a middle and a darker purple. If you're not sure, put a dab of each on a piece of paper and then you'll be able to see which dye's darker. You're going to base coat the inner frame in the lightest of the purples and the outer frame in the middle purple. Now, if you get these wrong, it really doesn't matter. Do not worry, but that's the way I'm doing it here. So I've base coated half and I've done 2 layers of paint. But in case you haven't base coated before, let me just show you the simplicity of how you base coat a frame. And really the key thing when it comes to base coating is to keep your brush as dry as possible. You do not want to slather on paint. You want to do it dry and you want to do multiple layers. So you see here, I am applying this really thin with a really dry brush. And so it's looking really pale. Let me show you that slowly so you see just how dry the brush is here. You're going to apply the whole way around, and the reason you want to do it like this is because you do not want to get any areas where paint gathers thickly. It's better to go like this and then do a couple of coats of paint rather than applying it thicker. So on the other side of the frame, I've done 2 coats, and that's the only difference in the colour. Now, the decoration on this bit is so easy. It's just these white stripes going round. And what's perfect about this is you want your stripes to not be too even. You want it to feel handmade. You want it to feel a little bit rustic, which works perfectly because you will really struggle anyway to make them perfectly handmade and straight. So all I'm going in with my white and a reasonable size brush is I'm just going to start painting the stripes. And I encourage you to try not to make them match. Try not to make the spacing the same. Allow it to be a little different. Allow them to not be too straight because I actually think that really benefits the design. So you see there, I intentionally made that stripe wider. And that's it. You're going to go round and do the inner slip like that. Now let me show you the outer. On the outer, before we go and do the white crosses, as you can see here, there's a very slightly darker band underneath. And that's what we want to paint first. Really, the best way to paint it is to use tape. You will find it easiest if you just use masking tape and you tape along the edges and you tape the area. So let me just tape up the frame and I'll show you a section here using tape to do that area. So I'm just going to do a little area and I'm just getting a roughly an even band and I'm going to tape up that section. Then just using a very normal wide brush, I start applying the darker colour. Now, bear in mind, you're going to think the darker colour doesn't look that dark, but you're going to have to apply a couple of coats. So right now, it almost looks like it's exactly the same colour, but I'll come back to show you that and how it goes darker. All I want to show you quickly here is that if you don't have tape or you don't want to paint it with tape, you can also just paint it by hand and don't worry about how perfect this is. You can just paint the stripe by hand. Just make sure you apply the paint thick enough so the band is really clear. So here you go, showing you a second band, second coat on there. And as I peel the tape away, you'll see that this really is a different colour. It is a darker colour. And when you varnish it, it will go even darker. So you want to get that done first and do allow that to dry fully before you go on to the next stage. So give this a minute. I allow this sort of 10 minutes and now it is dry. You can see it's a bit more opaque, it's darker. And then all I do is with my white, I'm going back over the top and I'm going to paint some crosses on. And the crosses, again, do not worry about making this perfect. The crosses are really nice if they just feel natural. That's what we want to achieve with this. You want it to look handmade. But remember to try and apply the white quite thick so that the crosses really stand out on that black. The only thing I'm not going to show you in this video is the varnishing. So once you've finished all this stage, you're going to let the frame completely dry. And when it's totally dry, you've got a little jar of varnish in your painting set. Just go over the whole frame with a single coat of varnish, apply it quite thin. You'll notice it takes all the colours darker. As you can see here, the colours are just that little bit darker and richer. And that's it. Your painted frame to go with your lovely stitched sable. I really hope you enjoy this kit and do keep your eyes peeled for our next limited edition and all our different designs.